Alright, MrSotko here, and welcome back to another Starcraft 2 replay cast. Today it's a 1v1 on a Dusk Towers between our blue Zerg player Serral and our red Zerg player viOLet. I'm going to speed this on up to the 8x mark to about the 2-minute point or so in the game. When all the good stuff starts to happen, overlords being sent towards each other, and not very difficult to find each other on this map. Zerg vs. Zerg, a very interesting matchup. I would say the most interesting in the game, and in a number of ways. It's one of the most exciting and one of the most boring in the same way, in my opinion, as it comes down to very individual units, similar to Protoss vs. Protoss. But with Zerg vs. Zerg, it's a lot of Zerglings and a lot of Banelings, usually just individual Banelings trying to blow up multiple Zerglings, trying to be as efficient as possible with them. It's a very interesting matchup indeed until somebody ends up getting roaches and lurkers and then wins over the other person. We'll see how this game in particular goes. We have a Baneling's Nest coming on for Serral and a Roach Warren for viOLet. So both sides going the polar opposites of each other, if you will, and that's somewhat unusual. And four Zerglings rather, going at it there, and that's going to be tough for them all to handle there. You know, moving up to the blue Zerg base up here of Serral, and spotted those Banelings there. And I'll have to run away from all of these Banelings, and one blows up and takes out a few Zerglings. And meanwhile, in the main base here, trying to get some of those drones, but more Zerglings were made, and now chasing each other around. And less Zerglings versus more Zerglings. That's generally the way Zerg vs. Zerg goes. A very, very wacky matchup. And now surrounded. A very nice surround there from Serral. And two Banelings on the way. Very, very slow Banelings, but the Zerglings on the way as well. And the Roach Warren coming out for Serral now, but it's going to be a little bit later than viOLet's. And where is viOLet's Roach Warren at exactly? Oh, there it is. Right under my nose. And now with these two roaches on the map here, should do fairly well, but gets totally surrounded, and those roaches do virtually nothing against those Zerglings. Way too many Zerglings, and not enough Zerglings being made. I'm surprised that he only had two roaches and didn't make any more Zerglings. And a decent Baneling hit there, and hits quite a bit of those drones. I think about 4 of those drones were lost. But now viOLet's back on his feet and has a good portion of Zerglings heading out towards his opponent's base, and a few roaches in the back as well. And units right now, 3 roaches to no roaches just yet. Serral now with 5 roaches. And now getting ready to defend that third expansion. Both sides pretty even here, nearly completed, and Serral's a little bit, or rather viOLet's a little bit slower than Serral's at the moment. And Zergling's waiting just for a moment here. Needs a little bit more before he can assault that. Really can't take out that many roaches and the various Banelings that are around with what he has. Pretty much just be suicide at the moment. And the hatchery about halfway, but Serral's is up first and should have his saturated first. And I'm gonna get rid of those annoying unbuildable bricks. And right now we have 85 supply for Serral, 62 for viOLet. But viOLet right now may be saving for a potential Maynard of drones and just massing drones over and sending them on over so that he can get that economic advantage and catch up to his opponent, who already had his going for a little bit. And Zerglings do spy this expansion over here and now know what's going on, as if there isn't too much to know what's going on anyway with the Zerg vs. Zerg. Pretty much a done deal on both sides most of the time. But again, it does come down to very individual units, usually more so than this particular match with the Banelings and Zerglings. One Baneling could really mean the difference between winning and losing, or losing your whole army or not. Sometimes Banelings clash into other Banelings. Sometimes you can get a few Banelings with just one Baneling. So it really comes down to that and how efficient you can be. And viOLet now has tons of Mutas out in the field here. Has a total of 7 Mutalisks and none for Serral, but he does have those Spore Crawlers up at the expansions. And now the Mutas in the base here, in the main base, and Spore Crawler at a very arbitrary spot, but it did get those Mutalisks pretty well and forced them out of there. Another Spore Crawler up front there, and going to be unable to get to this line either. So far, Mutalisk not really paying off. Those Spore Crawlers talking as hard is stopping all of that. But here comes some Zerglings, takes out some of those drones. Not too big of a deal in the long run, though, because here comes about 8 more of them. It didn't even really matter all that much. And although he did make his opponent build a lot of Spore Crawlers, looks like we have a Nidus coming up here. And there we go, but it's going to get instantly destroyed by these Mutas. Oh no, he actually transfers and heals that up, transfuses rather, the Nidus Worm. And very nice indeed. And a very clever idea to send those queens through first to transfuse the Nidus Worm on the other side. Here comes another Nidus Worm. And now Serral is right in his base, but I don't think these Nidus Worms really proved to be all that useful, as it just got his army right in the front of viOLet's base, just the same as if it would have ran all the way there. Although it did get around to these Mutalisks if he were to leave. Those Mutalisks would have been harassing his base. So he did get to viOLet's base quicker, but for the most part, those Nidus Worms really didn't do anything. And it wasn't like he put one of them in the back of the base here and got a bunch of drones with them. He simply just put it in front of the base, and his units were in front of the base, just as if he would have ran there. So it really didn't amount to too much, but interesting nonetheless. And gonna start spreading a little bit of creep now, and those extractors just now going up, making a ton of Ravagers for both sides. And in production, it's about 10 of those Ravagers for Serral. At 29 Roaches for viOLet. And only 16 for Serral. But Serral does have a few more Ravagers than viOLet does. See if he can use those to his advantage. And Ravagers, the kind of unit that I kind of think that this unit, the lower the bracket you are in terms of bronze and silver and such, the better Ravagers would be, and the higher bracket, the less useful I assume they are. They seem a little less useful as you climb up the ladder, just because the Corrosive Bile is a little bit easy to dodge. Sometimes you just can't dodge the Corrosive Bile, and you're in a real tight spot or something like that, and that certainly does happen, but for the most part, the Masters, Grandmaster players are able to dodge the Corrosive Bile a lot of the time. But still causes you to micro regardless. And so many Roaches here for viOLet. 42 Roaches to 27. 10 Ravagers for Serral, 11 for viOLet. And right now viOLet is maxed out 200, 194, so Serral just missing 6, so not too big of a deal there. Pretty much indiscernible. And there goes the Corrosive Biles. Both of them miss. And now Serral has 10 Mutalisks to only 1 Mutalisk. So that is the difference in the armies. More Roaches to more Mutalisks. And now all the armies going at it, and the Corrosive Bile just coming down all over the place. You can barely even tell what is going on. Just a blob of units versus a blob of units, and Corrosive Bile coming down all over the place. And most of those units simply just dodge it or eat it. One of the two. And looks like Serral's army has collapsed momentarily, and really just has those 4 Mutalisks, has 14 roaches, so has more than viOLet up here, but this is because he is on home territory and producing from his nearby larvae. So Serral, I think, got the short end of the stick on that one. That was actually kind of tough to judge. viOLet's army was destroyed, but of course that home advantage of Serral's Zerg and Creep allowed him to just produce additional units quickly. Now a little bit more Hydralisks in viOLet's army to deal with those roaches, and just to be behind his own roaches and deal that quick high DPS that Hydralisks, of course, do. And gets a free few roach kills there. Now both sides a little bit apprehensive, and can simply lose your army very, very quickly in these Zerg versus Zerg. Some lurkers now coming up here for viOLet in production, and so far none for Serral. Serral now making some some Hydralisk of his own, had about 13 in production, but no lurkers, so viOLet's going to be the only one with lurkers at the moment. And no overseers by the looks of it, so he's not going to be able to really spot these lurkers. Can corrosive bile them, but not really going to be able to see the action going on there. And now Serral just eating those lurkers, and just now morphing in that overseer there, evolving, growing, and Serral has to GG out those lurkers a little bit too much. That was the killing blow there, is just to sort of trick your opponent into thinking you're never going to get lurkers, and then all of a sudden you just had a few lurkers in the group and did huge damage to his opponent. So he did take this game with the help of those, I believe, it's entirely those lurkers. Just didn't have any sight for him, so he pretty much just had to GG out. His overseer was evolving in, and unfortunately the Hydralisks had taken it out. But I hope you guys enjoyed the replay, and I'll see you guys next time.